On today's episode of the Coach and Coordinator Podcast, we're joined by the cornerback coach at Kent State University, Keelon Brookins. Coach, great to have you here on the podcast.
Thank you, sir. It's great to be on the podcast. I'm looking forward to sharing my message with other coaches and always able to learn and grow. Thank you very much for having me.
Absolutely. So it's your first year at Kent State University, and you're getting ready for camp, and we're going to go into a few of those things as we focus now on the preseason and getting our teams ready. But before we do that, I want to go back to the beginning for you, Coach. What was it that made you want to move your game from being a player and becoming a coach?
Two things that stand out was I've always wanted to work with young men. My dad was a principal, not a superintendent, but I've been working with kids my whole life, right? So I always wanted to be a teacher. I wanted to grow up to be a principal like my father. When I got to college, my playing career was what it was, and I had some really good coaches. I had some not so good coaches. So my first 3 years of college football, I didn't like my position coach, and I think he poured into me. And then my last 2 years of college football, I fell in love with it all over again. I fell in love with the game like I was a kid again. And the common denominator was two position coaches that poured into me, that loved me, that cared for me more than just a football player. And those two coaches, man, they just changed my eyes on how I view coaches and the impact that so many coaches have on kids and young men. That when I transferred my last year of college football, I ended up being with a coach who I currently work with now. And he just opened that door for me, connecting with different people and say, hey, you can go this way, you go this right way, but you can still find joy in empowering and making and developing better young men. And I was okay, I'll try that out. And I first went to Central Missouri to be a math teacher, so I was going to get my master's degree. I was like, I was going to pay for that. I was going to be the driving officer to get that course done. And day 3 of camp, I fell in love with it. The corners I was coach at the time were making plays. I'm like, man, this is fun. Like, I get to play football, I'm around football. And yeah, better, I get to see other people smile and enjoy when they make plays and celebrate with them and celebrate them. And that's how I got into it.
So as you look at those early years, obviously you've been impacted growing up in an education family. I know you really start to understand the value of working with kids and how teaching's done, all the important things that certainly translate to coaching. But, early on in your coaching career, what were some of the big lessons you've learned that really have impacted and become part of who you are as a coach today?
More so, coach them hard, but love them harder. That's one of the biggest things I hold my hat on, and making sure my kids know I love and I care for them. Second thing is make sure I'm overly detailed with kids. Making sure that I give everybody the opportunity to be successful, no matter what I'm doing. If I got to spend extra time with a kid because he's not understanding something, that's not that kid's fault, but it's my job as a coach to make sure he's understanding and he's gaining knowledge, to make sure he has a chance to go out there and be successful. And I think the last one was just kind of just pouring into every kid. Every kid is different. So you got to coach them different, you got to talk to them different, you got to interact with them different. But you got to take all those things that you've learned and pour into each kid differently so they can be successful. Because it's all about the kids. Without the kids, there's no reason for a coach. You look at your kids and like, okay, they could get better at this. It's my job to make them better, so I'm going to go out and figure out a way to make them better. It makes you get better. It makes you become a better coach because you're reaching out to new people, networking, you're trying to always learn. Those coaches I always keep in my mind, I'm always trying to learn. I'm not learning for myself, but I'm learning for those I'm impacting every single day.
When you look at, especially starting now in your first year at Kent State, right, and as you said, every one of those kids is going to be coached differently. What's your process for figuring that out? You had the spring there, obviously, and it's an advantage going into fall camp now that a lot of those guys, but you have the freshmen coming in as well. So for you, what's the process of really getting to know that kid and how to coach him?
I think I walk around with a smile on my face at all points of times of the day. So I always allow kids to have the feeling that they can come and talk to me. And, you just put them to the side when you see them at workouts and seeing how they compete with their peers, and you kind of see who they gravitate towards. So some workouts, like, okay, they gravitate towards the person that is like the leader of your room, or they gravitate a person like the funny guy in the room, like what are they trying to fit in? And then when you try to get a grasp of that, you just kind of sit them down, but okay, talk to me about who you are. I want to know who you are as a person. What's your mom's name? What's your dad's name? Not that you already know that, but make sure you sit down on a one-on-one scale to act like you reintroduce yourself after the recruiting process. And so now they're feeling like they can have an open door connection to talk to you. And so they're going to start to let that guard down more and more and feel comfortable enough to tell you different things that you can pick up on those buzzwords that they say. Okay, well, this kid likes to do this. When I'm coaching him, I need to approach it this way. And when this kid does this, I need to figure out his way because this is the way he said that he likes, but it's not the way that it's helping him flourish. I need to go a different route to make sure he understands we're both have a common goal and then how our goals meet up to figure out the end of the race.
You mentioned coach them hard, but love them harder. And that coach them hard part, I was talking to Coach Ed Morrissey the other day, O-line coach at Marshall, and he said he's a hard coach too. But what people don't see is all the part, as you mentioned, love them harder. Like that stuff, usually you don't see that out on the field. People don't see that work you do with them, but it certainly is important to us. So talk us through that process for you and what it means to coach them hard. But really, I think also what sets you up to be able to do that, because it's all about that relationship.
Like you said, it's all about the relationships. So you sit down with your players when you first get them. You sit down and you talk to them. You let them know about who you are, let them know about your background, let them know about your personal life, about who you're married to, your kids. They feel like they have an open door to welcome into that. And once they feel that love that you could give them, that kids you care for them, then you have the ability to go coach them hard. When I say coach them hard, I'm not mean yelling at them. I'm not mean cussing them out because that's not who I am. I'm a man of God. I don't believe in cussing at kids or at anyone of that nature. So I'm going to hold you to the standard that you told me that you want to be held to because you said these are your goals. So I'm going for your goals and everything that you do in this life. I'm going to make sure that you're accountable young man in those goals that you're setting because you're going to be just as good on the football field as you are off the football field. So if you're touching the line or going through the line or running hard or doing this drill correctly, I'm going to make sure I'm right there for that to give you support. Because sometimes coaching a kid hard is about being support and being quiet. And then when he's doing something correct, you're the first one to give him a high five. When doing something incorrect, hey, bring him to the side. Hey, this is what you could do differently so you can be successful in this aspect of it. And then that's the way some kids deserve to be coached hard. Some kids don't like to be talked to as much, and that's something you figure out in the relationship building aspect of it. And you kind of just give them that thing to give them the groundwork that, hey, my door is always open for you to come in and sit down and talk to me, and we'll continue to build a relationship from there.
Coach, when you look at the mindset that you're going to bring to your guys, the mindset in your room, right? I think it starts with you, but you certainly want that carried out on the field. So talk to us a little bit about the mindset that you bring to the cornerbacks room.
The mindset I bring is, we're always going to have fun, but we're going to work. We want to be remembered. When people play us, when people see everything we're doing, like, okay, what did they do differently than everybody else? Like, we want to be remembered. We want to have a lasting impact. So when someone talks about whatever we are about, like that group of corners that is coached by Coach Brookins, they were different. They had fun. They made plays. They communicated. They talked. And they flew around the football field. I'm an energetic guy, so I always want to be the one running and helping my guys and celebrating them when they do something great, or do something good. The same guy that, hey, you do something wrong, I'm going to run to you, hey, this is what's going on, this is how you change it. And when you make that play the next time, we're going to run out there, we're going to make plays, and the whole group's going to go celebrate with you. We're about energy, about love, about giving to each other so we can continue to pour each other to be the best that we could possibly be.
From a leadership perspective, how do you see yourself as a leader, the guy who's going to lead these guys, but also teach them to be leaders as well?
I see myself as a leader by example. We're, in the profession we are, we're developing elite young men, and so you can't be an elite young man if you haven't went through yourself or went back and researched and made sure you were gaining knowledge and learning how to be that. And so I'm a very hands-on, lead by example type. And let's go through trials and tribulations. Let's fail together, and let's continue to grow from it. We're never going to count as a failure. It's just an opportunity to get better at that point in time. I'm always right there. I'm right there with them with everything they do. If they mess up, I'm hurting from it. And I just like kids need that guy that needs to be there for them, that went through it before, so they can understand I can make it through and I can be better than what coach is providing for me.
Coach, as you look at how you're going to approach it in your room, we've talked a little bit about teaching here, but what's the way you're going to run your room and make sure that those guys are getting the learning of all the concepts that you're putting in?
Well, I'm always going to start off with a quarter a day, make sure I grasp their attention, we have their attention. And I'm a very, like I said, hands-on type coach. I'm going to be on the board. I'm going to draw things up, and I'm going to make my guys get up in the room, and they're going to explain a defense I installed a day ago, that day, 2 days ago to the group to make sure they have an understanding of it. And I'm really big on keep everything simple and simplified. So our defense, our corners only have to know 5 or 6 techniques and 60 calls. We're going to play 5 or 6 things, so we're going to master those techniques that we're going to use in any other call and figure out how to get the best out of those guys with those 6 techniques, and then figure out how. Then we're going to show them like this is where you understand the concept of what we're playing in here, because the technique that you're playing at any other time it fits right into this defense. And so now you're asking, how can you make a true freshman play right away? Right? If you learn your 6 techniques with communicating defense, post-snap, pre-snap communication, if you hear this call, you know you're playing this, and now you're developing your game. What can you get by playing this technique to counteract so you can make sure you go out there and make plays?
Coach, as you look at bringing that onto the field, right, let's focus on individual a little bit. And what's your approach to individual? What do you think are the most important things to focus on? And then we'll talk a little bit about how you progress things as the season goes on.
I mean, I think the first and foremost thing we think about individual is make sure everything that you're doing individual translates what they're going to do in the game and what they're going to do at practice. Like, that's what individuals for, to continue to get better and perfect your craft. So I'm very big on fundamentals of individual. I'll start off by warming them up, and not going at 100% warm up, but going fast enough where we're understanding the movements. And I'm big on slow is smooth, smooth is fast. As soon as we get those movements down, the muscle memory's going to kick in, your body clock's going to come on. And then from there, as I continue to progress, okay, now you understand this movement technique. Now let's take it a step further. Let's add 2 receivers here and teach your body clock. So I teach my corners between 1 and 2 seconds. We get the 2 seconds. 1,002. That receiver should be 8 to 12 yards down the field, and you should be breaking. If he's making his declare, he's running a go ball, you should still be breaking to his hip or to his near shoulder, depending on the coverage we are in. And so now every step we're doing, we're starting off at the line, and then we work the top of the route, and then we work the finish. We're progressing each and every one of those drills as we continue to go forward throughout the season. But we're starting with the basement fundamentals, understanding each one of our techniques that we have to learn, make sure we're good at those, and understand how to apply those techniques when we get into the game situation.
So, Coach, as you start getting into the season, right, everything becomes a little bit more focused on the different things that you're going to face that particular week. Does your individual change its focus at all? Are there certain things you'll work over others? And what's the approach then on game week?
I think on Tuesday it's always going to be the same. We'll get our body moves, we'll get back to our fundamentals, what we're doing. And then more so Wednesdays, okay, what coverage are we mostly going to major in this week? We're going to work that coverage, work that with our safeties, work that with our linebackers, whatever that is. Or we might just be like, okay, we're playing man-to-man. These are different releases. We're going to get release points, different counteracts, so we can work on that. And then towards the end of the week, okay, we're playing all together. And now in Indy, we're working the finish of it all, because we want to take the stress off your legs, so from running as much, but make it more mental.
Yeah, that's a good point too, in that, you know, you're going to take some of the stress off of their legs. And how do you look at that in terms of rotation with your guys? I mean, you certainly don't want them out there, you know, covering deep routes the whole day if that's what the offense is doing in practice. You got to manage those loads a little bit, right? You got to get them to game day. So what's your approach into making sure you're keeping your guys fresh and getting them to peak on game day rather than spending it all during the week?
I believe in stretching out to every practice. So that's one thing we do is to keep them fresh and stretch out to every practice. I think you save your guys early in camp. You know, when you go through camp, there's guys that need more reps than others, and you make sure that when you're in the watching, you're mentally taking notes. You know, this might be a jog through type period, and you're not in, but are you 20 yards back, walking through the same steps, keeping the same progression reads, and going through that, taking those type of notes and mentally to make sure you're prepared for it. So you don't need to do everything physically to make sure your body's in there, because that's what camp is for, is to get those muscle memories down, but you don't need to run everything full speed. So this way, let's take your load off you. Let's spend more time mentally preparing you. Let's spend more time in the classroom, because I might give you on a Wednesday, I might cut your reps in half. I see your legs are until you have a GPS system. I see you ran this many yards. Let me cut this back a little bit and make sure you come in the classroom. Now you're watching a film. I want you to watch it from a coach's perspective, how we see it, because you were out there as a player at that point in time, but you're seeing how to see as a coach. The next time you're out as a player, okay, well, I know they're going to do this in this formation. I can cut this down so I don't have to work as hard, but I know I'm still getting my job accomplishing and done at that point in time.
Going into game week now and game day, in practice, you're able to stand in back like all defensive backs coaches do, and you can see both sides with your guys there. Now, are you going to be a guy who's up in the box, or are you on the field typically on game day?
I will be on the field this year. I'm also one of the signalers, so I'll be on the field, and not that's this build a relationship with your secondary coach or safeties coach about, hey, you're my eye in the sky, I trust you, or the DC or whoever is that guy in the box. If it's your GA, you build a close relationship that I trust you. We're in this together. It's not me versus you. We are in this together. We are a team. We're a family. First and foremost, end goal for every coach should be what's best for these kids. And what's best for these kids is to put them in a best position to win games and win championships. So if we're in this together, I know I trust you to see what I can't see. And moving my ego aside, like, okay, this is not working, this kid's not doing this, to make that necessary adjustments, because at the end of the day, we want to make sure kids go out there and they feel confident, and they can play fast, and they can play physical, and they're not thinking too much. Because the game of football has a lot of moving parts. Like, I don't want those guys sneaking around the football. I want them to go out there and play and trusting what we have taught them, and go out there and being confident in everything that they're doing.
In that regard, when they are maybe struggling a little bit over the course of the game, or maybe they get them a couple times early, what's the approach in making the adjustment, and for you, just philosophy on how long really you're waiting to see if he can make those adjustments to defend that guy versus maybe trying somebody else?
And I think you kind of figure out during camp, like, what can your players handle, and if it's a guy that is obviously better than your corner or better than your safety at that point in time, making a suggestion, we feel like, hey, he can't cover him in this aspect of time. I'm not going to continue to put this kid in a position where he's failing or losing. So let's change that technique up without always making that kid. Because as soon as you pull a kid, he's going to lose confidence in himself. But it's like, okay, this is what we're going to do differently to help you out. This is how we see it. This is what the technique that you could use to take this away. And understand that what your liabilities are if you do this technique. And then I'm also big on keeping my guys fresh, so I'm going to rotate them in the game, where I'm not going to have my number 1 and 2 corner take 90 snaps. When I have 3 other good ones on the bench, I'm going to make sure I rotate them in, so my good ones my best ones are taking 60 reps. And my next one are taking 20 or 30, so I'm preparing them from down the road. So if we're getting to a situation in week 9 where my best guy goes out, the next one coming in has had in-game reps and meaningful snaps where they're able to contribute and make sure that they're making a contribution while they're out there. They're producing, not just out there getting perfect alignment grades or perfect assignment grades, but they're actually producing while they're out there. If you have the confidence to go out there and get that done.
Let's talk a little bit about that evaluation, right? And what you're going to look at in terms of how that player graded out in the game. And obviously, I know a big thing, especially for the defensive guys as you get into the back end too, is production, right? How much production do those guys have? So for you, what goes into giving them that feedback? And I know, as part of this process, whether you prefer to make all those comments, in the film room versus putting down a specific grade, I think guys vary on that. For you, I'm sure it's most important just that they're getting it, they're understanding it. But what kinds of things do you put together for their evaluation, and do you give them on, the day after the game or when you watch the film?
So I know everybody does alignment, assignment, technique grade, and I think that's across the board universal. But I'm big on production grades. So like, you had 10 opportunities at the ball to make a tackle, get off a block and make a tackle, make a interception. PBU, like, what did you do in that predicament? Did you miss a tackle there? Were you productive? And so you might have 10 opportunities. In one corner, grades out of an 8 out of 10, but his technique grade is a 70%. Okay, I know that's more mental with this corner, so I need to make sure I pour more time into him mentally, because he's also producing when he's at the point of the ball. Now I have another corner who's grading out 98% technique, assignment, alignment grade, but when he gets a chance to make a play on the ball or make a play, he's going to 1 out of 10. Like, I'm going to go with the corner who's 8 out of 10 chance to make a play, and I'm going to build the confidence, more confidence, and figure out why this kid is lacking in that department of producing. Because my job as a coach to make sure I'm bringing him along as well. When I look at my grades in the fall camp, I make sure every day I go in, I grade their alignment, their assignment, their technique. We are a cover 2 team, so I make sure I'm grading things that are beneficial to what we're doing and what we're going to do every day. So I grade their one-on-one reps to see how many percentage of one-on-ones we're winning or losing. I grade their cliff, right? We call that our hard shell cover 2 technique. How many clips are you actually producing and productive on in that practice time frame? I grade their tackle percentage. I grade their missed tackle percentage. So we all can see, okay, this is what I need to get better at. This is what I'm lacking at. And this is what I'm thriving at. So we all have an end goal to reach for. And then I've learned that when I do those things, and I see those kids and they go forward to see and do every day when they go up there and see like where they at. You see the guys who are competitive, who want to get better. And like every day they look at the chart like, okay, I'm not number 1, I'm not number 2. Like I have to change what I need to get better at. And you see the guys who kind of just like, well, it is what it is. Coach is going to do this. Like, no, you're having an opportunity to get better yourself, and you see where you can get better at. So you can take those times after practice to go out there and work on those things. And so not everybody has a fair playing field to be critiqued and graded correctly and moving forward.
Looking at the overall culture, and we've had Coach Lewis on the podcast before and talking about the culture that he's put together at Kent State. Obviously, you're the guy who has to institute and carry that out within your room. So how are you taking what Coach does and really fitting it to your guys, to those corners, and really making everything aligned, not with just within your position group, but within the defense and the whole team?
I think whatever Coach does and Coach wants, that's what we do when you support that, because that's what our head coach work for. So whenever he's giving a presentation to our team, I'll make sure I take all the notes on it. And if I have a question, I go ask him about it. Like, okay, what did you mean by this? So I can make sure I go out and live that. Because the worst thing for a coach to do is try to coach something that he doesn't believe in. So I'll make sure everything Coach is talking about, he hired me, he gave me the opportunity to be an FBS coach. I'm going to believe in that so I can be the best coach I can possibly be, because it's obviously something that he believes can help our team. So I'm going to reiterate everything that he's saying. I'm going to follow suit. I'm going to be that guy that is another voice of the head coaches when he's speaking. Whatever he spoke on, I'm going to support that with our group, and our group knows that. Our defense knows that. That's what we're after, because that's our common goal, to continue to develop elite young men on a football field and be successful and win games.
If you had a young coach approach you and ask you, what are some things I can do? It's my first year coaching defensive backs. What things should I focus on? What's your advice to him?
Learn as much as you possibly can. Go out there and network and connect, and don't get stuck in your own ways, and to coach each kid differently. Have your base foundation and philosophy rules. To understand each kid cannot do a technique, but doesn't mean that that kid's not a good football player. But be like water and be able to flow with any one of your kids to make sure they're in position to go out there and be the most successful they can possibly be on that football team.
Coach, final question for you. And you look at all the things you do as the coach, what's one thing you'd really point to that you do that gives your guys the winning edge?
Being detailed. My guys go on the field and they know why we're calling the thing, why our technique is going to work, and why I should believe in what we're doing. That's why I call it going back to being detailed. Make sure they understand, like they're extended version of me. And so I want them to make sure that everything I know on this football team and football field and as deep as the call, they're going to know, so they can have faith and confidence to go out there and make that play and get that job done, because what we're calling it for. And also my energy. I'm very high energetic, and I want my guys know that we good energy people feed off of, positive energy people feed off that. So let's just go out there and get that done and be the most positive that we could possibly be.
Guys, you can follow Coach on Twitter. It's at Coach_Brookins. That's Brookins. Follow him on Twitter. Coach, I really appreciate you taking the time here. I know you guys are getting ready for camp, but best of luck to you and the Flashes in 2022.
Well, thank you so much for your time, Coach, and say go Flashes.